kommt Freude auf. Die Fahrzeuglackierung kann man mit dem Make-up einer schönen Frau vergleichen. Es soll schützen, aber gleichzeitig verschönern. Wenn man beides nicht pflegt oder es vernachlässigt, blättert es eines Tages ab und hinterlässt böse Spuren.
Today I'm going to start sanding down this bumper, E36 pre-facelift, because I want to put it on my E36 316 Touring, which is a facelift, but I like the pre-facelift style better, and I got this very cheap. So first things before DIY painting is give it a good sanding, sand it down real good, clean it, and yeah, this is just going to be probably a time-lapse thing, but I have to get started eventually, right? So let's do it. What I'm using to start sanding is this 80 grit dry sandpaper, just to get the main grime and unevenness out. So I'm gonna go with this and see where it leads me. Bumper is sanded, dry sanded, and I'm just gonna shoot it now with some primer, see how it's gonna look. I'm not too worried about the final finish too much, but I'm not gonna put too many more hours of work into this. I sanded as much as I could. The imperfections, okay, it still has some scratches here and there, but it's not gonna be a restoration finish. Just coat bumper, put it on the car, and enjoy the new look, the pre-facelift front end. Okay, I cleaned the bumper with some alcohol, isopropyl alcohol, and just gonna let it set a little bit, let it air out, and then I'm just gonna hit it with some primer and see what happens. Like I said, I'm not a painting expert. Everything is more or less self-taught. Painted a couple of things which turned out pretty good, some others pretty bad. So the bumper will be a new thing for me, first time. Anyhow, it can't be any worse than the bumper that's on the car now. So I'm gonna just shoot it with some primer and see what it's gonna look like. All right, I have my painting booth set up outside. Bumper, rather can primer. Okay, now just gonna spray it and see what happens. So that's the first coat, pretty light, put it on, see some runs, but I'm just gonna let it dry now and then go ahead and do another coat. But first, get a little bit tacky, but dried, and then shoot it again. I did another coat, second coat, thick one, and basically finished the whole thing. And now you can see it's primered. Yeah, it has imperfections, that's for sure. But like I said, this really do-it-yourself thing here. And anything is better than what's on the car now with the scratched up and broken bumper. So I have to get a can of Cosmo Black Metallic and then do the final coat on it. But now for the primer, it's done. We're gonna dry really good. Do another sanding before I hit with the top coat. But that's the next step I have to do. For now, just gonna let it dry, sit in the sun outside here. All right, final step, or final two steps are coming up with the bumper. Putting the base coat and then the clear coat. So I basically primered the bumper, used some spray filler also, sanded it, did some wet sanding, and it's smooth, at least smooth enough for me. And for the purpose it's serving, it doesn't have to be perfect. So backyard DIY paint job will have to do. And now I'm gonna hit it with some base coat and see. So this is gonna be a time lapse where I spray it. So I did the first coat, a really thin coat, trying to get every spot And next is the second coat. I didn't lie on too heavy on the first coat. I wanted it to dry, so I didn't get any runs, or at least less runs as possible. So the second coat will be a little bit thicker, but looking pretty even already, what I can see. Yeah, it's not going to be perfect, but for my intents and purposes, it will be enough. So next shot will be the second coat, another time lapse. I finished the can, it's empty, 400 ml, and I think it's turned out pretty good. I coated everything evenly, at least as much as I can do it with a 400 ml can. I did 3 coats, and now I'm gonna let it dry and then apply the clear coat. My worst enemy. This is make it or break it, more or less. So we'll see how that goes. First base coat, clear coat done. Thin coat in order to avoid any drips or runs in the future. And so I'm just going to continue hitting it with a third, second or third or fourth coat, whatever, until the can is empty and it's nicely covered. So I did 2 clear coat on the bumper, the second one pretty thick, and now I'm just gonna finish the can and put a layer of a third coat, a thick layer, finishing the can, and then it's pretty much done, and we'll see how it will turn out. So I'm done here. I finished all the cans and it's just drying here. And how does it look? Well, it's horrible, I have to admit, looking up close. Lots of imperfections, unevenness, orange peel, but for the purpose that it's going to serve, it's fine with me. I'm just going to put it on my daily driver, and since it's sitting at a lower position, you will not see the imperfections so much. Anyway, another way to reduce the orange peel on the bumper is by wet sanding the surface after it has cured a couple of weeks or even months. I would even let it sit a couple of months. I've done this before. Then it's really hard, the clear coat. Then wet sand it with like a 2000 grit wet sandpaper, the whole surface. Then buff it out with a compound, a hard compound, and then buff it out with a polish, and it's gonna look a lot better and will reduce the orange peel a lot. For now, I'm fine with it. Like I said, I'm not looking for a perfect restoration project here. I'm just looking to put a pre-facelift bumper on my car, and this has been accomplished. That completes the series of DIY backyard bumper painting. Anyone can do this, I think. Of course, it would be better to be in an enclosed area where there's no dust or bugs anyway, but for the purpose, it's fine. I mean, you have to ask yourself the questions, how much are you willing to spend? I could take this bumper to a shop, body shop. I've done it for my other car, and you can spend like 200-300 euros to have it painted, but is it worth it? It's just gonna get chips again anyways, and it's just a daily driver. Has to look at least a little bit nice from 10-foot distance, so this will serve the purpose perfectly.